What's up, guys? Today we're finally back out in the shop and we're finally working on something I've wanted to work on pretty much all summer, just haven't had the time. So this is what we're going to be working on today, is reproducing these tube doors that I built for the KRX. I think these were in some of the roll cage videos. If you paid attention, you probably saw them. I recently got them powder coated. I took them on a trip to Kentucky. They are kick-ass for the summer, and a lot of people have shown interest in buying a set, so I figured why not see what I can do to reproduce them. But along the way, we're gonna have to make some improvements, a couple tweaks, and we're gonna walk you through how we do that. We're also gonna be building a jig to reproduce these a little bit more easily. Now, the main reason I made these doors is for cooling. If you've been in a side-by-side, pretty much anyone, you know that they get extremely hot inside. If you have full doors like the KRX has, this thing gets so ridiculously hot in the summer. So this obviously lets way more air in. Not only that, the visibility with these is amazing because now you got a nice armrest and you can see right out when you're on the rocks or anything and kind of see where your tires are going, what they're doing. So we're gonna keep all those aspects. I really like that, what we have going on with that. We're just gonna work on the materials and construction of it and switch that up a little bit to make these better than they already are. So first things first, we need to pick a new material to make these doors out of. The original doors were made out of Schedule 40 3/4 inch pipe, just like this kinked piece right here. You can see it's a very thick wall, very heavy stuff. Those doors are pretty heavy for what they are. I don't really mind it. So we're gonna be using the affordable bender with the 1-inch die and using this right here, which is 1 inch by 0.95 wall BOM. I think this is like the perfect material to make this, and using the bender would be able to get much more accurate bends. The only problem is going to be these doors aren't going to look the exact same as the original set because the Harbor Freight pipe kinker, as shitty as it is, does have a slightly tighter radius. We're going to bend this bottom leg, and well, the three main pieces to the frame, but we're going to start with this bottom leg here. So one recurring theme you guys will notice from the roll cage video, we're busting out the whiteboard. We're also gonna basically gonna keep track of all the measurements, all the angles, everything we can to streamline this process to produce these more efficiently later on down the line. So I'm gonna be writing everything I start with here. Here's a basic rough sketch for the bottom leg, the overall length, the first piece we start with, then we're gonna mark where we start the bends, all that good stuff. But let's get to cutting, bending, doing the stuff we do with the tube. So here's our first piece. Yes, it is a little long. We can clean this up later and figure out exactly how long the piece needs to be, exactly where the bend needs to start. But for now, this will do. Here's what I was talking about with that radius. It's slightly different, not the end of the world. Overall, pretty happy with it for the first piece. So guys, here is our outside frame all bent up. And I'm actually, like I said, this radius a little bit different, but I like this look and I really like the way it looks here because the original door almost is actually kinked right there, so this is a much nicer flow for that joint. Now that we have the frame cut, we're going to cut all these pieces down, notch them, get it tacked up, then we'll work on the innards, and then we're going to work on this baby right here. So before we move on to notching and fitting these tubes 100%, I redid the measurements to shave off all the excess, and we can duplicate this because obviously doors come in a pair of two. I basically just went over these measurements. I measured these and referenced how much I could take off on each part and still leave enough meat to do our notching and fitting, and I came up with these measurements. I also wrote down all our bend angles, and this will be kind of my guide to go on going forward. If I succeed in reproducing and selling these, this will be our blueprints, and we can always make them better, but this data has to be as accurate as possible. But with that said, we're just gonna make another set off of those and hope to God it works. We'll see if our measurements are right or if maybe we need basic math, who knows. You guys just saw me pulling all the measurements off of here and for reproducing the bends for the doors. And actually, believe it or not, this went amazing. Like, it worked out great. I'm actually super excited that everything is literally perfect. And you can see how much waste we trimmed off each tube. So anyway, we're gonna throw our notcher set up on the table. And we're gonna get to notching these. And then hopefully we can tack these up tonight. So to transfer the marks for these notches, I kind of wanted to show you guys the process here. So I'm using these Fireball tool squares to basically just keep this edge perfectly parallel with that bend on the other tube on the original door. So this way, this thing is exactly in the position it should be when we go to notch it. And then what I'm gonna do, take this, stick it right in that joint and up against there, and we can notch or mark our inside edge. Now that should be the inside edge of the notch there. We'll just measure this angle and then we can notch that. Now, because that's not exactly scientific, we'll just leave it a hair long and kind of get close to that final length with a couple more passes. So I just figured out how to use the notcher again. I haven't used this thing all summer, but I still have that magic touch, you know what I'm saying? So we actually recorded all of our notch angles and the measurements from the ends. So once again, we can input all this into our data so later on we can reproduce these. So you guys can just scratch everything I just said about it being a great job. But no big deal. We just got to kind of re-angle these down because as you can see, the whole thing is twisted up. So we just got to pull this guy down, rotate this guy down. That is much better. There we go, guys. We got that door 100% fit up. Now we can work on the insides. I don't know if I'm going to copy this exactly yet, but something close. So we got the entire inside bars figured out. I kind of saved you guys the time of watching me just basically measure angles and notch straight tubes. Now we're going to get this tacked together. I've been kind of thinking about the process I want to go through to get the jig figured out. What I'm going to do is get all this tacked up, tackle the hinges next. Then we're going to build the jig off of this door once the hinges and everything is complete. Then I'll build the next door using the jig and we'll be able to see just how good it actually is. So we're going to get to cleaning this up and welding it. Next thing we have to work on reproducing is these hinges, and that's a little bit tricky because these two bends have to be perfectly placed to allow these to sit on the original, on the, you know, the chassis side of the hinge the way they're designed to. This spacing is very critical so that this door actually rides on this spacer, as well as the hole placement so the pin actually goes through without these holes being super oversized. So we're going to take some measurements, make a couple cuts, and hopefully we can get close. Probably make a couple test bends to get the distance between the two bends perfect first. So guys, I believe we got it in two. It took us 2 tries. The first one wasn't too hot. It was about 1/16 of an inch off. We added a 16th, and I think this is it. Slight hair of a gap on the bottom. That's all right, we can work with that. We know our measurements now. We got to make a bunch more of these. So we have our little tower of hinges here. We just got this one marked out. It actually worked out perfect. I have the measurements I need now to get these reproduced. And I also figured out our spacing for our hole. So like I said, this has to be pretty exact. It'll be a lot more exact once these are getting cut for me. This notch is kind of the thing I haven't talked about yet. It's a real pain to do. This one as well. This is to make sure it doesn't hit the hinge. We're gonna just have to do that by hand with the flap disc. It's pretty much the worst part of doing these, but we're gonna drill these out, make sure we get these holes located right, and then we'll drill the rest once we know for sure that they'll fit on the machine and work. Whew. Guys, can't ask for much better than that. So I'm gonna say that's a W. Let's drill the rest and get to notching. I was drilling these out. We got all the hinges drilled. They look good. I drilled this one out, and if you look, you could probably see on camera. So if you look, this one is crooked as hell. I don't know when I drilled that one, but it's pretty simple fix for stuff like that. You just make another one. You take this one, throw it in the fucking woods, because I don't make mistakes. I'm perfect. That never happened, you know? Boom, gone with the wind. We got the hinges all made, and if you notice, a slight design change. The original hinges featured this little leg, which is stupid, and they were directional in that this cutout was only on one side. The top was solid. So instead, we incorporated it so that I can flip these either way, and they'll work. And yeah, they came out really good. What I do want to show you guys is my little trick for keeping them on the same plane, because obviously they need to be on the same plane or else the door would be twisted like that. So I just put them on the machine, pins on, just like they would be if they were actually on the machine, and I clamp this piece of angle iron to them. Now I can sit the door in here, get it straight, tack it up, and weld this without this interfering. And while that also keeps them clamped in place to keep them straight, that's exactly what we're gonna do right now. Here is the first door tacked up on the hinges, and it worked out perfect. They opened about 90 degrees, which is what I want. They close all the way. They are a little bit tighter. These will sit about there. They're a little bit tighter to the body back here, which is perfect. The old ones had a tad too big of a gap for me. Next thing we have to tackle is locating the striker and building a plate for that. All right, guys, so that's it for this episode. We're gonna have one more episode on these tube doors. Next, we're gonna be finishing up the plate to hold the latch, designing some of that. We're gonna finish up the jig. I don't know how much I'm gonna show of the jig, but you will see it. And then we're also gonna be showing some laser cut parts. Like I said, we are getting these parts laser cut to streamline my side, and we are gonna be having them in the next episode. You're gonna see the real life laser cut parts that we got from all of our measurements. And shout out to everyone helping me with that, by the way, because I can't do it all myself. I'm not the brightest with that stuff. I'm working on it though. But stay tuned for the next episode. We're going to be finishing up these doors. We're going to be showing you a production piece of the doors, not the one with all the handmade parts. The one all laser cut and done from the measurements we came up with. So that's it, guys. Stay tuned, and thanks for watching.